Good evening and welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your night to join us for tonight's public hearing. This is a public hearing for the proposed Siler commercial seaplane marina in Torch Lake Township in Houghton County. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm going to be the moderator for tonight's public hearing. So I just have a few things to get through before we get started. All right, first off, this is what the agenda is going to look like. We're going to start off doing an introduction, which is happening right now. A big thing to keep in mind is that we're going to have two parts to tonight's hearing. We're starting off with an informational session where the applicant's going to have an opportunity to present some information on the proposed project and application. And then we'll have a short question and answer session just after that, where anybody will be able to ask a question related to it. And then after that, we're going to go into the official hearing part, where anyone will have an opportunity to make a statement for the record on this application. And then we're also going to talk about the other ways to submit an official comment in case you didn't want to make a comment tonight, and then who to contact if you have additional questions. All right, if you haven't joined us for an online or virtual hearing before, a couple things we'll let you know about. So all lines are going to be muted during the hearing. You will be able to unmute yourself to ask a question and to make your statement later on, and we'll explain how we're going to do that. You can also submit questions for that question and answer period after the informational session using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. You can type those questions at any time, though, and we'll answer those at that time. And then also, just so you're aware, we are recording the hearing, and this recording will be on our YouTube channel or YouTube page in a couple days. So you'll be able to watch it again or forward it on if you so choose. All right, at this time, I would like to invite our other EGLE staff on the line to turn their cameras on, introduce themselves, and say a little bit why we're here tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cassie Abrams. I'm the EGLE district representative that covers permitting for Houghton County.
Hello, my name is Ryan McCone. I'm the Upper Peninsula District Supervisor for the Water Resources Division, so covering all of the UP.
Oh, you're muted, Stevie.
Sorry, Stevie Simon, the Secretary for the Water Resource Unit in the Market District Office.
All right, thank you all. Cassie, did you want to say a few words about the project while we're here?
Yeah, so we're here tonight to discuss the application for a proposed commercial seaplane marina in Torch Lake.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move right into that informational session. So we're going to see if William Siler is in the audience, and we will unmute you. Oh, it looks like you are. Oops, I think I just, all right.
Hello?
Oh, yep. Are you there, William?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, excellent. 1 second here. All right. Yeah, we have a couple slides here related to the application. It would be great if you could say a few words about it. I'll kind of just go back and forth on these slides as it seems appropriate. If you limit it to around 10-15 minutes, so we have some time for Q&A until we have to move on to the next part, that would be great.
The main thing I really kind of just wanted to talk about here was some of the previous comments and things like that. Most of them seem to be about the environment, and I just think the environmental impacts of this project, these 5 pilings and a ramp and seaplanes, are going to be next to nothing. They allow these planes to fly to Isle Royale, where everything's protected and closely washed, things like that. Right there you see a picture of it darn near completed, and I mean, there is no erosion issues. There isn't I don't know, anything I can think of anyhow. And allowing the commercial use of this ramp will help the economy. It's definitely not going to hurt. And it also doesn't compete with any of the other businesses. There's that. Anyhow, that's really about all I had to talk about during it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for saying a few words about it. I think that
Could
helps.
I add one
Yeah, go ahead.
clarification? Just, Buck, you did great at kind of laying it out there. I just want to make clear for everybody else on the call that the activity, so the installation of this ramp and these 5 pilings were authorized by EGLE. That is not really what's being discussed or disputed, however you want to look at it in this hearing. What we're looking at now is the commercial use of it as a marina. So it's not necessarily the physical structures that were put in; those were legally put in under authorization. It's just use as a marina for the seaplanes that we're here to discuss tonight.
I think that helps, Ryan, provide some clarification on why we're here. All right, does anybody have anything else before we move on to questions? All right, if not, we're going to move right in that question and answer session. So if you have a question tonight for our panel related to this application, you can submit your questions using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So you'll see that Q&A box. Just press that, type your question in, and we'll answer it. Or if you'd like to ask your question verbally, there's a click hand icon. It looks like a hand at the bottom of your screen. For those of you who are on your computer, you can click that raise hand icon. That'll raise your hand in Zoom. And you'll have an opportunity to ask your question. We do have some people on the phone tonight. And if you're on the phone, you can select #2 on your receiver. And that will also raise your hand in Zoom. We'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. So you know you're being called on. We'll unmute you, and then you'll be able to ask your question. Just want to clarify, last thing is that this portion of tonight is for asking questions. If you have a comment or a statement that you'd like to make on this application, you'll have a chance to do that a little bit later on during the hearing part, and we'll explain how we're going to do that. But for right now, we're going to answer any questions that you might have. And then if we don't end up having any questions from the audience tonight, what we'll do is we'll just move on to the next part of the hearing, which will go through other ways to make a comment. You'll be able to make your comment, and then we'll give you information on who to contact in case there are some additional questions and follow up. All right, so are there any questions tonight? Before we move on, I'm not seeing any raised hands at the moment. I did see a question pop up. All right, here we go. All right, so the first question: has EGLE reviewed the active eagle nests and feeding area of the island and the federally required flight clearances for protected species of eagles and seagulls?
I can start to answer that. Ryan, you can chime in with more. With every application, we do an initial threatened and endangered species screening. Eagles did not come up on that screening. We were not made aware of any nesting eagles in the area. So that is why we're here tonight. This is your chance to give your comment and your information later on about those nesting eagles if they are there.
This shows.
All right, thank you. All right, next question.
Sorry, could I add just one other thing to that? So
Yeah, go ahead.
for those not familiar, so bald eagles are no longer an endangered species, but they are protected by the Bald and Golden Eagle Act. And under that act, there are certain things that are prohibited, but the operation of a motored vehicle, it would basically require a permit under that if it was within 330 feet of an active nest, which there's no active nests within 330 feet of this particular site.
All right, thanks, Ryan. That's helpful. Next question may not be directly related to tonight, but if I'm going to read it, and then if anybody wants to or can chime in on anything. And the question is about addressing the seaplane running over a couple seagulls in the morning, or flying at 800 feet or less over people's houses in the area. I guess, is there anybody that can comment on that at all, or if that's relevant to the application tonight or anything? I guess at all to that question.
I could take a stab at it if you want, Cassie.
Yep, go for it.
So the 800 feet or less, we are not the FAA, we are not MDOT. That is not something that pertains to this project. That's simply outside of our scope of authority. So that's not something we'll be addressing. In terms of almost running over seagulls, again, that would be, if they were to hit a seagull, that would be a matter. I'm not familiar with anything that would prevent use of a seaplane in areas with seagulls. We've also
right.
not received any feedback from any of our partner agencies where that was a concern.
All right, thanks, Ryan. All right, are there any other questions? Looks like I have a raised hand. So it looks like Eric Kalunin, we are going to unmute you, and then you'll be able to ask your question. It looks like you're unmuted on our end. You can go ahead and ask your question when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Hey, I live directly off of Seagull Island, as it is affectionately known in our backyard. And I've got airplanes 20 feet off the water, 500 feet off my dock at full load, full throat. And I promise you they're twice as loud as any snowmobile going across that lake in the middle of the winter. And so I look at that. Secondly, when the wind comes in from the east, I've literally had a plane 100 feet off my top of my roof over my house because that's the only way they can come in safe. I think I've already heard the answer, which is EGLE doesn't have anything to do with this and has to be brought up to the FAA. So, but from the standpoint of nobody being concerned, I've got airplanes literally 100 feet over the top of my house.
And Eric, if you don't have a question for this part, you
That's
can save the comments for the hearing part.
That works.
Yeah, and then we'll let some other folks ask questions if they have them, and then you'll have an opportunity to make a statement on your concerns.
I do have a little extra information that may help them if you don't mind, Ryan.
Okay, go ahead.
So I mentioned the FAA and MDOT. The reason I brought them up, those are public airports, like Houghton County airports. In terms of noise ordinances and things like that, that is something that local zoning is supposed to deal with. And I would strongly suggest that you talk with your township representatives and find out why there aren't ordinances in place if those are concerns of the local people. It's not that we're ignoring them, it's that it's just not within our scope of authority. And, my understanding is there maybe need to be some work locally within the township to get ordinances in place to deal with concerns such as that. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you both. All right, I have another question here related to noise studies done by EGLE, which I think we already addressed in what Ryan just said. And then I have another hand raised. Jennifer Miner, we're going to unmute you. And then you can unmute yourself. Looks like you're unmuted. Feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, this is actually her husband, Evan. My question is, with this airport or this water airport coming in, what is that doing for boat traffic on the lake?
So seaplanes they're floating boats or flying boats. That would be if you have concerns about congestion or things like that. DNR law enforcement may be able to assist with that, but in terms of recreational usage amongst boats and seaplanes, it's no different than having an extra boat in the area.
Yeah,
I just have a follow-up question as well. You know, we've in the past have had days or weeks where there have been signage around, especially Lake Linden and even Hubble, that we can't even let kids swim in the water. So what's being done to mitigate that issue and make sure that the water remains safe? And has there been and I just popped on, so was there an environmental impact assessment done?
No, no environmental impact assessment is necessary for this permit review. We have heard back from our federal and state partners, and concerns about some of the bird species mentioned has not been, it's not an issue as far as we can tell. In terms of the beach closures, I think that's what you're referring to. That's largely a stormwater matter, particularly during the summertime. Can be driven by high air temperatures forming up the lake, can be driven by poor, stormwater runoff quality. All of those things, while important matters, have really no bearing in the discussion of this permit. This is simply whether or not the facility can be used as a marina. That's it.
And one last question, you've referenced quite a few things that you said that you've been heard from that were like, there's no issue there, there's no issue there, there's no issue there. Is that available like to the public for review anywhere?
As far as, go ahead, Ryan, as far as Eagles review?
Yeah, like the things that we've mentioned, you said, like, oh, well, we heard that there's no issue with that, or we were told there's no issue with that. Like, where would I access those?
Yeah, so the documentation we have in place, and a lot of those documents are already available if you on our website, My Enviro. When it comes to threatened and endangered or protected species, there can be some things that aren't released to the public to protect the species, but just regular correspondences between agencies like that are part of that record. So they're already available online.
And we'll be providing a link to My Enviro a little bit later on, to where you can make comments and so forth. Just so you're aware. But yeah, we're going to move on to another question because we have some more raised hands and so forth. I want to make sure we have enough time. But thank you for your questions. All right. We have one in the question and answer box that I think might help. It kind of builds on what you mentioned, Ryan, as far as what EGLE's jurisdiction and authority is. There's a question of what sorts of EGLE's or what sorts of issues might EGLE be able to help with that are relevant or under EGLE purview. So is there any, can you talk about what types of things are under our purview for this application? I guess related.
Yeah, I can. So when looking at this permit application, we are reviewing it under part 301, which is the Inland Lakes and Stream Statute. So we are looking at impacts to the lake, to the water itself. We cannot regulate noise, but we're looking at direct impacts to the water.
All right, thanks, Cassie. I have a phone-in caller who's had their hand up a little bit, so let's go to phone-in caller 7946. Looks like you're unmuted on our end. You can ask your question. Are you there, phone-in caller?
I am here, yes.
Okay.
So there was a comment about the Eagles, and there's no, nothing.
Oops.
Within 300 some feet of the dock, I think was the concern. That's kind of irrelevant. There are at least 3 eagles nests on the south end of Torch Lake, on both sides of the cuts, and then deep into what is sometimes called Little Torch Lake, down by the dredge. I know one of them is active. There's eaglets in there right now, and I don't know about the I believe a friend of mine said the one by the dredge is active, and there's one right at the cuts. I don't know if that one's active. However,
did you have a question for us tonight?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's a clarification. It's a clarification for what I heard.
Okay.
Earlier, somebody mentioned the flight restrictions over eagles' nests is 1,000 feet in any direction. And there's no exceptions for takeoffs or landings. So we need to be clear in terms of some of the restrictions that are being talked about. And this is in the federal registry. You can look it up. So it has nothing to do with the dock, but it has to do with takeoffs and landings. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. All right. Thanks. You also have an opportunity at the hearing portion to make a statement if you'd like to as well. But yeah, thank you
Okay,
for
thank
that.
you.
Yep. All right. There are a couple in the Q&A box questions that came in. So this is related to the original permit application. And then also when the piling, and I guess these both are. One is what happened to the original permit with the original permit application being approved, although it was incorrect. This is the reason some of the EGLE studies, such as the herring fry study, did not completed before construction. And another question related to the original, one of the pilings put in. And I'm assuming that relates to the original permit application. Or maybe I'm incorrect with that assumption.
No, you're correct. And I'll Cassie jump in if you want to add stuff, but I'll take the lead on this one because so the original application proposed construction of the 5 pilings and the ramp as have been constructed, and their construction was authorized and legally done. That's not an issue. That permit was issued back in December of 2023, and it was constructed. The issue was whether or not the structures could be used as a commercial marina, basically, which is what the purpose is. There was a miscommunication in the application regarding that use, and that's why we're having that's why this application needed to be submitted. That's why we're having this hearing tonight. Is not to discuss the actual structures themselves; those were legally put in. It's whether or not they could be used, as a marina, and so it's not that anything was done improperly the first time around. There was simply a misunderstanding regarding what the purpose of the project was, and that's why we were here today. Regarding herring fry studies, I'm not aware of any studies that were intended to be done prior to that issuance of that permit. The 5 pilings and a ramp are pretty minor activities.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Did you have anything to add, Cassie, or did that pretty much wrap
I saw
up?
the question about an environmental impact study being required for commercial use, and no, that is not necessarily the case. However, a public notice period is required. That's why the second application was submitted, allowing for that 20-day public notice period that has led us to this public hearing.
All right. Thanks, Cassie. I think that's helpful. All right. We're going to go have a raised hand. Carrie Effinger. All right. We are going to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question. Looks
okay. Like right where that hangar is being built for the seaplanes, there was a huge tar pit there, and I remember it. That whole area was a huge tar pit. They covered that. All they did was cover it with dirt and planted grass on top of it. So I'm wondering, what did they do with all that dirt that they hauled out of there? And how far to the water does it go? Did the EPA have anything to do with that, or did they just haul it out and dump it somewhere?
I'll take a stab at those. So it's important to recognize that this permit application pertains to use of the 5 pilings and ramp that are located below the ordinary high water mark. It does not pertain. We have no regulatory authority over the uplands above the ordinary high water mark. To maybe help address some of your questions, though, having been on site, the material that was moved, the dirt that was moved off the surface was stockpiled on site, and my understanding was being reused to it's going to be placed back over. What the EPA's involvement is with this is that that cover was for that cover being the soil that was put in place and the vegetation that was seeded in. They require that areas that are exposed by construction be either recovered with that material and seeded, or if a building or something else is being put over top of it, then that's not the case. But basically, it needs the cover needs to be put back in place to maintain that cap when construction is done. I'm not aware that soil was hauled off. So, like I said, it was stockpiled on site when I was there, and it was being reused to recover the areas.
Yeah, I didn't see any down there. I've been
There-
down there. I haven't seen any that, and I remember I grew up there. I grew up a block away from that place. We used to go down there and throw rocks in that tar pit, covered that whole area. So
Yeah,
when
that-
they built that building, they had to go down at least 4
Yep.
feet to compact dirt.
We're actually going to have to move on to other questions because we're running out of time. We've got time for a few more questions, but I want to make sure we get some. But thank you for that question. And if you have any other comments, yeah, feel free to talk about them during the comment period. All right. There's one, actually, kind of two that are in the Q&A box that might be better for William. I don't know how often this is related to operation. How often will the planes be taking off and landing on the lake? When will the flights start during the day and when they end? When will they be flying during the year? How is fueling going to be addressed? So it looks like those are the ones related to operation. Can anybody care to take a stab at any of those questions?
I can do that.
Okay.
The fueling question is the fuel is hauled out on a cart, put into the planes, and then it's a little trailer behind a lawn tractor, and then it's immediately taken off the dock, and that's how they fuel the airplanes. What was the other question?
The other question is related to planes taking off and landing. Like at what times of the day will they start and end? And what time of the year?
It's the hours will be, I believe they take off at 8 in the morning and they're coming back around this time of day. 6 o'clock would be the last flight. I'm not aware that they fly evenings at all or early morning. So it shouldn't be a sleep issue if that's the actual question, as far as waking people up early in the morning or keeping them awake late at night.
Yeah, thank you very much for answering those and for those who asked them too. I've got time for one more question before I move on to the next part. It looks like we have a raised hand from a phone-in caller ending in 3355. So we are going to unmute you. It looks like you're unmuted, phone-in caller. Feel free to ask your question.
Thank you. I'm at what we call Little Torch. My question pertains to in front of PCI and surrounding area. It's my understanding that, was it Honeywell and Sequential, or they're going to start remediation processes with the barrels. Maybe a test one this fall. I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine barges will be brought in. There's going to be issues with seaplanes and remediation work going on at the same time. Safety for the local public, if sediment is, being lifted out of the water, stirred up, seaplanes going on. How is this being addressed, and is it being addressed?
All right.
I can answer the question on the EPA barrel removal project. They have been made aware of this ramp and pilings that were placed during the initial permit application in December, and they did not have any concerns with the placement. They were not near where they needed to be this fall for the barrel removal. And when they do the removal, there's going to be a turbidity curtain placed around the entire area to capture any sediments that are stirred up during that time.
Okay, well then, you know, as far as, yeah, I just, for me, that looks like a major safety problem to the workers, to the barges. Yeah, I, you know, and of course, being on Torch Lake, I have a lot of other thoughts that perhaps I'll address in the comment section. But as far as the question, I hope that is looked into more. Maybe, you know, they can work more hand in hand, because that is a safety concern for the lake.
Is there, I guess if there isn't another question that we can answer, we're going to move on to the next part of the hearing tonight. And then you also have an opportunity to make a statement during the hearing part. But thanks for your question, phone and caller. All right. Okay. Now we are, I guess, first off, you know, thank you for participating, for panelists in that Q&A session, and for all those great questions. I will mention, if your question didn't get answered, I think we touched on at least most of them. If it didn't get answered, we'll be providing Cassie's contact information at the end of tonight, so you can follow up on any of your questions with her. And before I move on to the hearing part, just want to make sure you're aware that there are other ways to make a comment on this application in case you don't want to make a statement tonight. You can do it through EGLE's My Enviro database. And I'm going to read this submission number. We're going to put in the chat this My Enviro link. So the submission number is HQ2M5GF36Y5Y. For another way to make a comment is by mail. And for those on the phone, I'm going to read off this address so that you can be able to copy it down. And I will also mention, if you miss any of it, we're going to have this slide up again, and I'll repeat it. But to mail, you can make comments to the EGLE Marquette District Office. The attention of Cassie Abrams, CASSIE-ABRAMS. And the address is 1504 West Washington Avenue. And that's in Marquette, Michigan, 49855. And the comment period will be open for 10 days, which will be June 2nd, 2024. All right, we are going to move on to the hearing part. So to get started, Cassie, would you want to read the opening statement for us tonight?
Yes, I will. Okay, again, my name is Cassie Abrams. I am EGLE's Water Resource Unit Upper Peninsula District Representative, overseeing the permit applications in Houghton County. I'll be serving as a hearing officer for this hearing tonight on submission number HQ2M5GF36Y5Y. And a reminder, joining me tonight is Ryan McCone, Marquette District Supervisor, and Stevie Simon, Marquette District Secretary for the Water Resource Unit. I have a lot of information to provide right now, so please bear with me. The first is the agenda to describe how tonight's hearing will occur. I will begin with some background information about why we're here, and then I'll describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments are used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments, and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. Finally, you'll have an opportunity to provide comments, and following the hearing, I will conclude with a closing statement. A little bit of background information. The Water Resource Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs to help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resource and Environmental Protection Act, or NREPA. We are here tonight because William Siler, the proposed marina site property owner, has applied to EGLE for an after-the-fact authorization to operate a commercial seaplane marina at his Torch Lake property in Hubble, Michigan. EGLE previously issued a permit during December of 2023 authorizing construction of a 12-foot wide boat ramp extending 30 feet below the ordinary high water mark, Torch Lake. Additionally, the 2023 permit authorized installation of 5 10-inch diameter pilings driven into the bed of Torch Lake for use in anchoring a floating dock. While the physical placement of these structures in Torch Lake was already authorized, tonight's hearing pertains to and was requested in light of a subsequent application received during 2024 and proposing use of the completed dock and ramp as a commercial marina for launching and mooring seaplanes. In order for a commercial marina permit to be granted for an inland waterway, EGLE must find that the proposed activities meet certain criteria set forth in Part 301, Inland Lakes and Streams of the Natural Resource and Environmental Protection Act. In general, EGLE must consider the likely impacts of the proposed project on water resources held by the state of Michigan in public trust. So when we're reviewing a permit application under the provisions of Part 301, Section 30106 requires that number 1, the department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. And number 2, the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources in the state. Tonight's public hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide comment and information regarding the proposed commercial marina use proposed by the applicant as they pertain specifically to the purview of EGLE's Part 301 authority. EGLE will consider substantive information and comments from the public when determining whether or not a permit can be issued. Please recognize that EGLE can only consider publicly provided information that fall within the state's authority under Part 301 and pertains specifically to the project proposed. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but it is important to remember that EGLE by law cannot base a permitting decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. So in just a moment, I will outline the procedure we will use for taking your comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the Daily Mining Gazette on Saturday, May 11th, 2024. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, please raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. Number 1, the applicant has already had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will call on those who have indicated their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all those that raise their hand in the Zoom toolbar, indicating that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via My Enviro portal or the U.S. Postal Service. When all comments have been received, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end with the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and remain respectful of one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff are here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to share your comments on the proposed project and take into consideration those comments which are substantive to part 301. Okay, and how the information will be used. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be part of the information EGLE considers in making its decision on whether or not a part 301 permit may be issued for the proposed commercial seaplane marina project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on June 2nd, 2024. Additional information and comments submitted in writing through the My Enviro portal website during the 10-day public comment period will be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed, issue a draft permit with modifications for applicant consideration and countersignature, or send a letter of denial. You may find the permit decision by checking the EGLE My Enviro portal website and searching for the application number. Again, that number is HQ2M5GF36Y5Y. Thank you for your attention. We will now begin calling on the names of those who have indicated they would like to make a statement.
All right, thank you for reading that, Cassie. Yeah, so as Cassie mentioned, I have a list of names here who indicated during registration they would like to make a comment. We'll start with those. Everybody have 4 minutes. I'll be keeping track of time, and you'll hear a bell that sounds like this when you have 1 minute left. That's how you'll know that you're getting close to time. Everyone will have an opportunity to make 1 comment to make it fair. If you're on the line and you have more than 1 person who would like to make a comment, just let me know, and I will give each of you an opportunity to make a comment. We'll be here tonight until we get through everybody's comments who has one. If you're on the phone, you will have an opportunity to make a comment too by raising your hand in Zoom, as we've done with the Q&A session. So we're going to start off with the people during registration who indicated they want to make a comment, and then anyone else who'd like to make a comment. You'll just need to raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you in turn. And again, if you're on the phone, select #2 to raise your hand. If you are on your computer, you just hit the raise hand icon like we've done before. All right, so to get things started, the first person I have on my list is actually William Siler. I think you may have registered in order to presentation tonight, but I want to give you another opportunity because you indicated you want to make a comment during the hearing part tonight. So William Siler, did you have anything you wanted to say for us as part of the hearing?
No, I think that was done by mistake. I wasn't sure really what I was doing when I was lining it up.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you. All right, so next up is Jonathan Rector, and then following Jonathan, I have Lois Siler. So Jonathan, looks like you are unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself and begin your comment when you're ready.
Hi, this is John Rector. I'm the Director of Operations for Isle Royal Seaplanes. Just want to make a few comments that are in response to some of the public comments during the public comment period. Fueling. We do fueling from a portable tank, much like large vessels are fueled. Folks may have seen vessels down on the canal in Houghton where a fuel truck pulls up beside them and fuels from the shoreline. So our fueling operation is very similar to that. We have a standard marina spill kit available if we have a fuel spill. I have to note we have not had a fuel spill in the 10 years that we've been operating on the water. It is pretty rare, but we are prepared for it with a spill kit. Also, it's important to note that this is gasoline, and gasoline being lighter than water, when it's spilled on the water, it remains on the surface and evaporates rapidly. So even though we have the spill kit and would deploy it, by the time it's fully deployed, in most cases, the gas would be evaporated anyway. Safety, even though this really isn't part of the EGLE review, I just want to say that, you know, seaplanes operate in some very congested areas in this country, even though folks here locally don't see them that often. There are plenty of places. A good example is downtown Seattle, Washington, on Lake Union, which is not much bigger than Torch Lake. They operate, you know, with every possible type of surface vessel and have never had an accident there. And in fact, in the, you know, over 100 years that seaplanes have been flying, there are less than 10 fatal accidents that involve a collision between a seaplane and a boat. So it's extremely rare. Also note that our old operating location was confined in the canal, so all of the boat traffic was funneled into that area. And so this situation is a lot better than that, in that, you know, it's a very large open lake. So we don't anticipate having any kind of issues in terms of conflicts with boating traffic. Flight schedule, someone asked. So we operate daily, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. May through October, although most of our flights will end September 21st, but we will do some local sightseeing tours into October. We operate 8 round-trip flights a day, so 8 takeoffs and 8 landings. Noise, even though that's not part of EGLE's jurisdiction, seaplanes are loud, but they're out over the lake, and the distance between the seaplane taking off and houses along the shore is pretty great. So the felt noise is really not much more than what people hear routinely every day: lawnmowers, trucks, snowmobiles, ATVs, etc. And that concludes my statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you for making that comment. Right, next up is Lois Siler. Lois, let's see here. I'm not seeing you on here. If you're calling in or would like to make a comment, oh, there you are. We got up to the top. Are you there, Lois?
Yes, I am.
All right, you can begin your comment when you're ready.
I wasn't expecting to be making a comment, but listening to this hearing so far, I'm fascinated by people who are concerned about noise. We've had a seaplane in our area on Torch Lake for many years, and nobody's ever complained about the noise or the seaplane taking off and landing. I live directly across from this, and I actually think it's kind of fun watching them take off and land. And the noise only lasts for about 40 seconds. It's not like they're there for very long. As far as going over people's houses, I'm not sure when that happens because they're on the lake. I personally think it's a good idea. I think there's several businesses in the area of Lakeland and Hubble, Tamarack, that are going to do very well because of these planes. And it's always good to have good exposure for tourists that come here. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, Lois. All right, so that concludes all the people on my list who indicated during registration they wanted to make a comment. So we're going to go to the raised hands. If anybody's on the line who would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand in Zoom by selecting the raise hand icon, or by, if you're on the phone, by selecting #2 on your receiver. So the first, David Hallinan. David, we're going to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself, and you can begin your comment when you're ready.
Sure, thank you. This has been a controversial endeavor, to say the least. These people were asked to leave Ripley They tried to get set up over on Pilgrim Point. That was shot down. And then, so there's a lot of controversy. There's no public hearings other than this so far. And Cassie made a comment. She made two interesting comments that are a little bit contradictory. One had to involve with public trust. You know, the purpose of doing activities such as this is to maintain public trust. And then the other contrary statement was this permit was done after the fact, which suggests, you know, an underhanded approach. So if we're going to have confidence in the government and trust and whatnot, and, you know, could you elaborate on the impact and the consequences of doing an application after the fact? That's my question.
All right, this is actually the time where we're taking statements. The questions, question answer period were previous to this. So if you have a follow-up question, you can contact Cassie. I'll provide Cassie's contact information.
Yeah, well, my question came up as a consequence of her statement, of her opening statement. That's
right. Ryan,
So-
I'd be happy to address the question. So after the fact, the reason we're pursuing it is that this would not be an after the fact issue until operations actually begin. When the application was submitted, we weren't sure when that would occur. We didn't know there'd be a public hearing requested. So that was a preemptive, measure to leave that open. It is not an after the fact until they actually start operating, which to my understanding they have not. And so as such, if a permitting decision is made prior to them starting to operate, this in fact will not be an after the fact. It will revert to just a regular public hearing and permit process.
So, Ryan, if I could comment on that, I happen to be in the neighborhood and I drove by the Seaplane airport this morning. There was a ton of people there. There's a ton of extra cars there. I don't know if they're construction workers or people flying out to the island. Perhaps we can get a clarification if in fact they have started operations.
Operations mean planes taking off and docking there commercially, not anything else.
Correct. Sure.
All right, you have two minutes left, David. I did pause.
I'm good.
Brian was answering.
I'm good. I'm just asking questions, and so yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next up is Monty Ancliffe. Monty, we are going to unmute you, and then you can make your statement when you're ready. Looks like you're unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself by clicking. There you are. You there, Monty?
I am here.
All right, you can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, myself, Monty Ancliffe, and my wife, we want to offer our support for the commercial dock and the post going in, and our support for the seaplane operation.
We feel it's good for the economy and tourism in the area. And we are just very grateful that they have found a place. We feel it's very appropriate being next to Coppers, sort of in an industrial area. I know there are some residents living close by, but like another commenter said, the seaplanes make just a short time amount of noise, and they help people come to the area to visit our beautiful Isle Royal, which is very important that people realize that Isle Royal would not let seaplanes come there if they were concerned about eagles or other habitats, because they fly right in there. So we just want to support the seaplane business.
We love to watch the airplanes come and go. I hope they throw a picnic table up there somewhere for us.
Yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for your comment. All right. Next up is Sherry Kunari. Sherry, we're going to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Okay. I guess I just want a little clarification. When you're saying that they are not operating, but what do you mean by not operating?
So
Or
we're
that
not,
they are not carrying passengers?
so this is, we're not gonna, we can't get into a question and answer period right now because
I understand that. I just
we're
want to
timing.
get clarification because I know people who have flown to the island. And so
That-
I guess I want clarification as to what are we saying, that they're allowed to operate or that they are not?
So Ryan, so they can provide clarification after this public hearing period is over. Either at the end of this, if Ryan would like to address it, or by contacting Cassie Abrams, and we'll provide Cassie's contact information. But we
Okay.
need to stick with statements because these are being timed and we need to make sure everybody gets an
Well,
opportunity.
I understand. This was just something when that they made after you ended the public comment part to the thing, that they are not operating, where in fact they are. But besides that, in regards to the nesting eagles, I've lived down here for 27 years, built my home down here. The eagle's nest is active. It's at the beginning of the cuts. And I know you stated that the nest can't be within 300 feet of the seaplane base, if that is correct of what you said. I can tell you this, and I watched it this morning, when that plane is taking off, it is definitely within 300 feet of that active nest upon takeoff. When it took off this morning, it took off, the lake was so rough. There were white caps on the lake, and the plane literally came. I was watching it. The whole front of my house is glass. I watched the plane and it came directly towards my house, and it was the lowest I've observed. I don't know if that's due to the wind, and I don't know what their regulations are when wind conditions maybe are not in their favor, but yet they're going to take off. Don't know any of that. All I know is today was the closest I've seen that plane. It was extremely low. And it was definitely within the eagle's nest, and within 300 feet. I have concerns about that. I have concerns about how low it is to my house. And I know those aren't things that are addressed in what we are talking about today, but the noise is real. It's loud. That was about 8 o'clock this morning. My house actually shook, which it's a very strong house. It did rattle. I heard some things rattling. I was shocked. Never did this happen when they've been doing these other runs. The only other concern that I'm done.
No, you have 1 minute left. The timer was for the minute.
Okay, well, those are my concerns, I guess. I'm done.
All right. Thanks for your comment, Sherry. All right. Next up is Brad Barnett. Brad, we're going to unmute you. And then you can unmute yourself and make your statement.
All right. Thank you. My name is Brad Barnett, and I'm with an organization called Visit Keweenaw. Our responsibility is to promote Houghton and Keweenaw counties as a destination for tourism. I wanted to just touch upon a few things. One, certainly many of the comments that have been made by community members are valid, and I hope that EGLE takes them into an account at the appropriate time and place. But what I wanted to really attempt to focus on was the really long-standing track record of Isle Royal Seaplanes within the Keweenaw and Isle Royal National Park. They have operated with a level of professionalism that is admirable, especially in the outdoor recreation and transportation industry, without incident over the last 10 years. In a very busy waterway, the Keweenaw waterway, the Portage Lake Canal, without safety incident or incident related to the water ecology in the region. They're certainly a strong community partner. They would not be allowed to operate in Isle Royal National Park if they did not take into consideration regulatory restrictions in terms of operations as a federal concessionaire. a very trustworthy organization that I know will be a great community partner in the township. So I just certainly encourage the community, community leaders, and certainly the businesses that will be impacted positively by the operation of this commercial marina to come together and just really work out a solution that's best for the community and all the stakeholders involved. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what's best ultimately for the community and what helps move the Keweenaw forward. So thanks for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide comments.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right. Next up, we have a phone-in caller, last four digits, 3355. We're going to unmute you, and then if you could also mention your name, it would be appreciated so we know who's making the comment. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Anissa Turvo. My comments tonight are, my comments and concern are that now we have Airport Torch Lake. We all know if you go just up the hill, we have a beautiful airport that has gates around it, that is protected, that is run like every other airport, that I know of. Just like the last caller said, as a community to come together and have a solution, as far as supporting the island, the seaplanes could fly out of the airport, which is equipped with any safety measures that we all expect to have when getting on any sort of airplane. Fly out of the airport, land on, whatever the situation is out at the island. That perhaps they research whatever, I don't know that anything. I have raised children on Torch Lake. I have grandchildren. I am concerned that we now have Airport Torch Lake. It does not seem fair for us to feel like we have to feel guilted into accepting this because of the other pros it would bring as far as money to the area, etc. I would support that, but I don't think the way to support that is by having Airport Torch Lake. When we have an airport up on the hill, I did minimal research. I believe seaplanes can be equipped to land at an airport. We have the facility there. I would propose that instead of making Airport Torch Lake, we have the seaplanes flying on the airport there, because as another caller said, they have, jumped from site to site to site, they being this seaplane operation on this end. There are so many reasons why a better solution could be found. I too have hundreds of pictures of my local eagles. So, I know lots of people talk about them. I am on the Copper Country, I participate in the Audubon email. So I'm not affiliated with it. I just participate because I enjoy birding. There has been rare sightings of golden eagles in Lake Linden. We have eagles. I know of 3 nests right around me, 2 that I know of have been active at least the last 5 years, probably more. And also, a gentleman talked about that single island. That is a source, of food for these eagles. Source that everything as far as the ecology will be disrupted with these seaplanes coming. When on the hill we have an airport, I believe we have a solution. Like I said, it's going to be gated. It's going to have all the safety regulations. Whereas the lake just becomes Airport Torch Lake, and I have my grave concerns with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. All right, next up, Jennifer Miner. Jennifer, you're unmuted. You can unmute yourself and begin your comment when you're ready.
Perfect, thank you. Again, my name is Jennifer Miner, and I just want to make sure that we are considering all of the environmental impacts in addition to what everyone was talking about with the eagles and things like that. And, you know, I really cherish what Torch Lake brings to our community, and I'm all for tourism, and I'm all for bringing more money to the area. My biggest concern is what is going to happen when all of these people are coming in. And now, you know, we don't know what environmental impact it's going to be because there has been no study on what's going to happen to the lake later. I understand that there's been things that have happened that with the dredging and with the pond water and things like that on the Lake Linden side that have made the water not always usable. But that's going to be the same situation with this moving forward as well. So any tourism isn't going to be like breaking the bank when people can't even get in the water, which is, you know, kind of frustrating. And I just want to make sure that, you know, when we're thinking about all of these environmental impacts, that there's a good plan in place for who's going to be handling what, because as someone who's been here since all of the floods and all of the other things that have happened in the area in the past 5 years, I think all of the citizens are just getting a little frustrated at the level of bureaucracy that comes in and how there's no actual organization that's taking responsibility or answering questions. And so when we hear things like, well, that's not my department, that's not my department, and it gets really frustrating to get clear answers. And so we really need to consider how this is going to look for the locals who actually live here and have their houses getting rebuilt or redone because of erosion and because of all of these things that are happening to the water and to the land around us. And that's all I have to say. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you for your comment. All right. Next is Sarah Trevino. All right, Sarah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, you can begin when you're ready.
Hi. So I just wanted to make a few comments. They're kind of all over the place, so pardon me, because I just haven't written anything down in front of me, so it's just kind of stream of thought. When we bought our house in Hubble, which we've lived in Hubble all our lives, but we continue to live in Hubble, knowing that we were not going to be living by a commercial airport, knowing that our house values would not be going down because there's a plane flying around. So this has kind of broken that. And I think that for me, at least personally, and I know for my husband as well, that it is frustrating to know that the building of this was called private to start with, almost to try and hide it so that they could sneak around having Torch Lake Township be able to talk about this in a meeting before it got approved for Siler to even do this. And also I would like to reiterate what other people have said about the seaplanes basically being chased out of other areas, being asked to leave. You know, there is an alleged incident of a woman who opposed the seaplanes coming into the Nara reservation area, who then had the windows of her house shot out after making a public comment. So I don't know. That to me is also just kind of concerning. The people that are coming in here are not from here. They're not from this area. So the money that they make isn't necessarily going back into our community. The campground that their employees will be living on is a way to dodge taxes. I'm sorry, but I'm not a fan. I also don't like having to shut my windows in the summer for a seaplane that is going, and it's longer than 40 seconds. It's a lot, and to have my weekends now be this is very disappointing. That's why I live up here, to have this peace and quiet. That's the whole point of living up here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. All right. Next up, Jennifer Julian. Jennifer, you're unmuted on our end.
Yeah,
And-
thank you. I'm here to show our support for the commercial use of this dock. It is surrounded by an industrial site and is a former industrial site, so it has sat vacant for quite a while. And we're really excited to see a commercial activity come back to it that brings people back to the area, particularly for the use of Isle Royal seaplanes, which fly into Isle Royal National Park. I've taken their operation quite a few times, and the other guests that take their operation are responsible recreators. They're going to a national park. They're responsible tourists, and there are many stories that can be told as far as the use of this seaplane into Isle Royal National Park and the importance of it from a safety standpoint and from people who have had medical issues on the island, and it has actually saved their life to be able to get back to this area, an area where we have a hospital, much quicker.
Thank you for your comment. All right. I don't have any of the raised hands at the moment. Is there anybody else who has not made a comment yet who would like to make a comment? All right. Looks like Eric Kalunin. Eric, you are unmuted on our end. You can begin when you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I commend you on the professionalism of this hearing, so thank you for that. Regarding the whole project as it goes, Dave Holland, who spoke earlier, did a god-awful lot of work on a presentation regarding safe glide paths, regarding Eagle's Nest, etc. And I hope he'll share it with you, because I think you'll find that a thorough review will find that this proposed air operation is in violation of multiple CFR codes, etc. And then the FAAST, which is the safety glide ratio to actually land on the lake while maintaining the 500-foot clearance over residences, is virtually impossible. And so I hope he'll share it. As far as finding a good way to help Bill Siler, which I would like to do. I admire people that do things, turn it into a boat marina if possible, and use it in that way. I'm slightly jaundiced on this because my house is literally 500 foot from airplanes taking off at full throat at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the afternoon, or morning. The bottom line is I have a bunch of grandkids that come over to my house, and when a plane goes by your house and absolutely rattles your windows and wakes up your grandkids, it's an issue. Again, the island in front of my house, I live right next to Seagull Island. It's 1,000 feet between my house and the island is a place where eagles are eating on a regular basis. I often watch them and enjoy it. So when you start looking at it, it's just practically impossible to place a seaplane base here from a safety standpoint, from a federal regulation standpoint, from a state standpoint. So again, I believe this operation ran out of CMX last year, and I would encourage the Isle Royal Seaplane operation to make sure your planes are outfitted with wheels so that you can land up at CMX and keep the lakes for the recreation that's being done, which we all love to see happen up in the Keweenaw. And get the people out to the island, take care of them, make sure we got safety so we can get people off the island. We can land at CMX. I think there is a solution, and that airport is only 3 miles away uphill. If you look at the elevation, again, Dave put this in his report. If you look at the elevation of the airport, it's 1,100. If you look at the elevation of the lake, it's about 600. It's about 500-foot delta between the airport and the lake, and it's literally coming down the hill. And your glide paths, when you look at an FAA safe 3-to-1 glide path, which means 3 nautical miles per 1,000 foot, when you start laying out and looking at the work that Dave did, you're going to find out that it really doesn't belong on this lake. There's no physical way for these airplanes to take off and land without being in violation of the 500-foot over populated residences. And in densely populated areas, which I would call Tamarack and Hubble, it's actually 1,000-foot. So there's multiple regulations that Dave has spec'd out that I just encourage EGLE to read. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your professionalism. It's appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, Eric. Okay, Joe Gervais. Looks like your hand is raised. You can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you holding the meeting, and I have also appreciated hearing the input and comments from all the people who have attended the meeting. I'm the person who sent the question that referred to the permitting process of how the permit was originally granted as I believe some sort of residential project, but it turned out that it was never intended to be a residential project, and that it was going, excuse me, and that the plan was for it to be a commercial seaplane port right from the get-go. Upon review of the actual application, it was clear that this was stated, the original application, the one that was approved originally, at the end of it, it mentioned that it was going to be used to fly seaplanes in and out. And so the question was never answered in regard to how that happened on EGLE's end. It wasn't an oversight, as it was said. I mean, I think there's a little more to that story. And if you look over the documents that are on the EGLE website, it speaks to that. But it also speaks to the, excuse me, the studies that weren't able to get done because, you know, the seaplane port had already started to be built. And so I'm hoping that somebody at EGLE will address that application process and what actually happened with it. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Joe. All right. Is there anybody else who has not yet made a comment who would like to make a comment tonight? Again, if you're on the phone, select #2 on your receiver. That'll raise your hand in Zoom, and then we can call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. And then if you are on your computer, you just have to select the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If we don't have any other people who would like to make a comment, we'll move on to the next part of tonight, which will be, we'll show those other ways to make a comment again. And then we'll give you Cassie's information in case you want to contact her with any follow-up questions. Are there any other folks out there who'd like to make a comment? Still not seeing any. So we're going to go ahead and close this out and go on to the next part of tonight. So Cassie, if you could read the closing statement for us, it'd be great.
Yes, and thank you everybody for coming tonight, sharing your comments, insights, and cooperation in our public hearing. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and the time you invested here tonight. As indicated earlier, you may submit additional written comments until June 2nd. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via My Enviro portal or the U.S. Postal Service. The hearing is now closed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. Yeah, sorry about the bell. As Cassie mentioned, I've got the other ways to submit a comment on your screen through My Enviro, HQ2 M5GF 36Y5Y is the submission number in My Enviro, or by mail to the EGLE Marquette District Office, to the attention of Cassie Abrams, CASSIE ABRAMS, and the address is 1504 West Washington Avenue, Marquette, Michigan, 49855. And as Cassie mentioned, that comment period will be open until June 2nd. If you have any follow-up questions, and you'd like to contact Cassie, you can contact Cassie at 906-869-0745. And again, for those on the phone, that's 906-869-0745. or at abramsc1@michigan.gov by email, and that's abramsc1@michigan.gov. All right, now before we close out, Ryan, do you have any closing comments for us or anything that you wanted to address, I guess, tonight from the comments?
Sure. I appreciate everybody taking the time to meet with us and to hopefully learn a little bit about how this is precipitated. I do want to encourage folks to submit their comments, but to please, in doing so, recognize what we have authority over and what we do not. Some of the matters are legitimate concerns. However, they should be addressed to your local township, to Torch Lake Township. In terms of zoning ordinances, that would be the appropriate venue for those concerns to be hashed out with. In addition to that, the multiple permits, permit applications that were brought in. I hope everybody understands that there was nothing nefarious. There's nothing, behind the scenes going on. I would be happy to further discuss that with folks. But I think some of that gets lost in translation. And so while I appreciate people's concerns, we're being as thorough and transparent as we possibly can be in this process. So with that, I'll wrap up and just say thank you again to everybody for spending your evening with us.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks to all of our panelists who are on tonight, and for all of you for being part of this process. Last thing I'll leave you with is just a reminder that this public hearing was recorded. And it'll be on EGLE's YouTube channel here in a couple days after it's captioned. And so you'll be able to access it there at that time. And you can forward it on or watch it again if you'd like. Thank you very much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Thanks.
Thank you.